So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the muscles used in breathing and how it affects different activities and things that we do. So there's typically two different types of breathing. There's chest breathing and belly breathing. Some people call the belly breathing diaphragm breathing, but diaphragm is always used whether you're breathing with your chest or breathing with your belly. So I don't really like that phrase. It's really chest and belly. So typical belly breathing is when you take a deep breath, your diaphragm descends and your obliques and rectus abdominis relax and your belly comes out. And then you relax and your diaphragm just rebounds from the pressure of your abdominals. And then your obliques and rectus contract and you expel the rest of the way out. With your chest, you have your intercostal muscles, and your rectus abdominis locks down, and your chest lifts. And then it can start to activate these neck muscles and elevate the ribs a little bit more. And then you relax, and it goes back down. When you can't really do both at the same time. The diaphragm is really acting at the pivot, and either you're stabilizing your abdominals and your chest lifts, or your chest is stabilizing and your abdominals go down. Maybe there's someone out there who could do both at the same time, but it's really going to be a back and forth between the two. So a very simple example is if you're sitting or you're wearing tight pants, you'll tend to see a lot of people more activating their intercostals to breathe. And if you're on the computer all day or typing, it can, not in all people, but it definitely can aggravate neck issues if you're just chest breathing all the time. In general, with most activities, we should be walking around doing belly breathing with our mouth closed. Interesting thing with our mouth closed, it's harder to breathe. It's easy to breathe through the mouth because the airway is a lot shorter, because you're just going through your mouth into your lungs, versus when you close your mouth, you have to add your sinuses in, and the air passages is smaller. And so what some people find is they can't belly breathe. If you close your mouth and breathe through your nose, you automatically will start to activate the diaphragm because it's just a stronger muscle than a lot of the intercostal muscles. So in general, with most throughout our life, we should be belly breathing. And then as activities increase, then we'll start to open our mouth and activate our intercostals to start to chest breathe. So when we look at runners, for example, when you're running, you're kind of crossing your body, and so you're really activating your abdominals and you're activating your obliques to kind of stabilize your back. And what will happen in those situations is people will stop diaphragm breathing or shallowly breathe, and they start to mouth breathe. And they're not getting a full breath in. And so we talked a while ago, or the last video, about the dead space. And so if you're kind of shallowly breathing, you're not getting good oxygen exchange. And people will just kind of more like pant when they breathe, and it's just not an effective way. And so one of the techniques that you'll teach runners is you'll teach them the double breath. So they'll tend to do 2 big breaths in and then 1 long breath out. So it'll kind of be like, and so that double breath really allows for full oxygen exchange. The reason why you're doing a double breath in is because you're activating your obliques and your rectus abdominis. That rebound pressure that happens when you relax really allows for a full exhale, because of all those abdominal muscles, and that tension just gives more contraction to the diaphragm to allow for an exhale. And usually the problem is that they don't get a full inhale. So it's more like you're running in a constant exhale rather than a constant inhale. So yeah, you'd recommend a double in with a long exhale. It's also, running tends to be very relaxing and not very stressful. Now, if we take a stressful exercise like fighting, the sympathetic nervous system, which is controlling the inhale, and you can see that when you jump into ice water, or if someone scares you, you take a deep breath in. So the stress response is more of an inhale. And what you find with stressful activities and stressful sports is that rather than being stuck in a forced exhale, like runners are, they're stuck in a forced inhale. So they tend to hold their breaths a lot. And again, we're not getting full oxygen exchange with a breath hold. So with fighters, again, rather than doing a double inhale, what you'll focus on with them is, because they're holding their breath, is an exhale. And that's what you see, is you'll find a lot of people coaching that as you do a jab or do a kick, you're doing an exhale motion. And we also know that that exhale is activating the external and internal obliques, which will stabilize the trunk and give you more power. We also know that an exhale, if a sympathetic fight and flight stress response in charges of an inhale, the exhale is controlled by the parasympathetic, more rest and digest. And so not only with fighters are they exhaling to stay relaxed, they're exhaling to control their obliques, and they're exhaling because their tendency is to hold their breath. Again, this is not true for everyone, and you gotta look at people individually and look at their activities and stuff. But across the board, it is, it's a general principle. So if you kind of think about that with the muscles that we're using, you think about the dead space and trying to get a full breath in and out. With runners, focusing on the inhale, with fighters, focusing on the exhale. It kind of builds a better picture, or just a different picture, or a more in-depth picture of what happens with respiration in sports and activities.